I 22F hate myself up and am torturing myself over how I acted towards ex-BF 24 meters. Any advice on if I acted wrongly? How can I stop hating myself? I am sorry I am advance if this is a long read. I really need advice on my last relationship as I am torturing myself over the end of it. I feel evil and toxic and I need some advice on how to not blame myself so much. Context: BF and I were third-year uni students at the time. The relationship was amazing for about a year and a bit. Everything seemed like a fairy tale. Like a dream. It was my first love plus my second relationship. My first BF didn't care at all about me, so when I met this guy he was so lovely and sweet and funny and thoughtful and I seen him as perfect for me. He was my absolute best friend. I sort of got on with his mum at first, but she didn't like things about me. That I didn't clean up his mess or didn't cook much, or that depriving him of food and taking his food away from him, which wasn't true by the way, or that everybody judges me. I wasn't too fond of her but didn't let it get to me too much at first. He never really stood up for me. BF was doing a finance degree and I was doing a music degree, so I feel as if his degree was much more difficult than mine to begin with. Anyways, I had a dissertation due in less than a month that I completely failed to prepare for, so BF said he seen that I was stressed and he said he'd like to help me with it so it could get done sooner. I said no initially as he had his own work to be getting on with, and I told him it was my fault that I never prepared, so I told him it's totally fine and I am okay, but he persisted saying he'd like to help, so then I said okay. We were both working around this time and we had a few assignments due as well as him having 2 exams after Christmas. However, in the last week, I was only working 1 or 2 days as I crammed everything left to do into the last few days. He helped write a lump sum and I was very grateful for him and thanked him tremendously as he had his own work to do, and asked him if he wanted help with any of his work, and he said I could help once the dissertation was finished. BF's friend has ADHD, and his friend gave my BF. BF took them home and used them to help him focus and stay awake. He gave some to me and said American students use them to study, and I had reservations about them at first, but then he said it's normal, so I took them eventually too. I stayed up the last few nights trying to finish everything, and got everything done the night before. The morning they were due and I was trying to find the save file of the dissertation and couldn't find it, so I asked BF kindly, "Hey baby, thanks for everything you've done. Could I just ask one last favor real quick? Could you quickly help me find the most up-to-date version as there's 2 and I don't know which is which?" He then threw his phone at me and punched the wall and slammed the door, which made me shocked and slightly angry. I immediately cried because he scared me. I asked why did he do that and what was wrong, and he screamed at me, "Shut the F up" at me and stormed off. At this point I was extremely confused and shocked. I didn't know what just happened. I told my mum and she didn't like how he was acting and she told me to just leave before he comes back in case he hurts me. But I stayed as I thought it might be rude of me to just leave if he's angry. Before he came home that night, I went into his mum's room and asked where he was as I was concerned, and his mum looked at me and said she thinks he has too much on his plate and that we should spend time apart from each other for a few weeks, and said I didn't seem worried. I was so confused. Again, I had no idea he was stressed. He then came back and started shaking in the living room and started crying. His mum called me into the living room as I was waiting in the bedroom until he got back. Whilst he was shaking and crying I sat on the floor next to him, but I didn't do anything as I was shocked. And I was angry from earlier, but him and his mum took this up as I didn't care or I didn't comfort him, which I did do afterwards, just not at this point. He was saying how he felt he was doing too much, such as cooking, working, doing his assignment as well as helping me with mine. I just wish he would have told me sooner instead of holding it in and exploding eventually, though I know men have trouble sometimes opening up. I tried to comfort him all night after that when we went back to his room, though I was up pretty much the whole night trying to talk to him calmly. He was drinking excessively and taking loads of all at once, and I was afraid he would suffer a heart attack or something, so I threw them in the bin when he wasn't looking and also tried to pour the alcohol down the sink but failed cause he grabbed it off me. The rest of the night I tried my absolute best to be there for him, but he was being really difficult when I told him to come to bed or to stop drinking as I was worried. The next day I phoned his mother as I was worried about him and thought I should tell her about last night, which she then accused me of letting him take drugs. For context, he had an incident a few years ago where he overdosed on pills and ended up in hospital before I knew him, so I can totally understand why she might be worried, but I didn't let him take drugs. He would have taken them with or without me there anyways. My mum was worried about me because I cried a few times during this time as he was saying quite sharp and hurtful things to me, such as "You fucked this whole situation. You happy now? And you don't do anything for me," and phoning up his dad, telling him that I made him do my assignment whilst taking drugs, and then said to me, "How do you feel now? My dad hates you too, you fucked this up big time," whilst I was trying to hold myself together and not get angry, as well as not bursting into tears. My mum told me to just wait until his mother gets home from work. As she said to me previously, "I think you two need a few weeks break from each other," which I was so confused I never intentionally tried to hurt anyone. Then, fast forward a day or two, I was just about to go into work when he kept phoning me for no reason. I tried talking to him nicely and saying I'd love for us to try and work things out in person, which he replied, "You can try, but good luck getting past my ma'am," which I responded, "Why? What did she say? Do you really want to know?" I said, "Yeah. She said you're no longer welcome at our house, and that she doesn't want to go on the holiday with you. It's fucked. She also said that I should be with someone who builds me up instead of tearing me down. She said you still don't do anything and said it will only get worse from here if I am with you," which my heart just dropped completely. I really did just try my best at the time. I then bought him a Christmas present as it was in a few days. I bought him tickets to see his favorite DJ and my mum helped me buy them, as well as a plushie for his sister and a box of chocolates for them to share. I gave him his present, which he came empty-handed, but I didn't care as presents aren't important to me. He then brought me around to buy a perfume for myself, as I think he felt bad that I got him a bag of presents. Again, I don't care at all about gifts. I just wanted to see him for an hour before I had to go to work. We then went for a coffee and I said, "I think you'll really like these," and he said, "Thank you, but TBH, aside from this one, I can't remember when you last bought me a gift, or surprised me with a present," which I brushed off at the time, but it hurt me later, like a delayed reaction, which I have to quite a lot of things. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, and most of it was going to food, essentials, and public transport because I was a cleaner working in different areas around London. It was costly at the time. I also asked him if he could bring me a bag with my clothes in as I wasn't well. Come in the house and I need my clothes back. He handed me a big bag with all my clothes as well as all the little belongings we got together over the past year. I looked at him and said, "Why is all our ornaments in here? You put everything in here, not just my clothes," and he said both him and his mum filled the bag. I cried a little again and then stormed off to catch the train. I felt very upset by everything that happened. And I wasn't welcome in the house for months. I went around about 3 months after this incident and his mum never came out to welcome me. BF then told me when we were in his room that she wasn't happy that he brought me around. So believe me when I say this went on for months and I grew resentment. Even months later, when my mum said to his sister on the phone it would be lovely to come and visit you guys again, and she responded, "Yeah, I don't think that will be happening anytime soon." My mum told me that, so I confronted BF about it and he said, "Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what she said." It was just a complete mess. But as time went on, I grew extremely bitter and resentful of him and his mum for that night. And I would keep going on about it to him. I just couldn't let it go or find forgiveness in my heart, which was crazy because I always found it in myself to forgive people my entire life. So I didn't understand how I felt so angry in this situation, and I don't know why I couldn't let it go. I just couldn't. I really regret this, but I would constantly say to him, "I hate your mum, she's horrible. How could you say those things to me? How dare she say that about me? I was treated so unfairly. I feel like she hates me, but for what?" And many more things like that. For about 5 months I was doing this, and I feel like it was bothering him so much because he was caught in the middle where his mother was angry he was spending so much time with me and would call him home for the most simplest of things, and that bothered me too because I thought to myself, I love him so much, but is this the kind of family I am getting involved with? And believe it or not, even though I was so angry towards his mum and I was badgering him so much about this, I did love him truly. I just felt at the time my first real experience at love that by me doing that it would make them feel bad for what they did, but it had the opposite effect. And then a friend of mine had Bumble BFF and Badoo. She said there was a friend section like Bumble, which I know now there isn't, and I downloaded it because I suffered with social anxiety and felt easier meeting friends online. I trusted her because she also had a boyfriend at the time and felt no harm in it, but I remember when I downloaded them I never actually made a profile on either one. So I never went through with it, but the apps were still on my phone as I forgot to delete them. Well, on top of all the stress of what I put my BF through, he found the apps on my phone and almost stormed out of my room. I panicked a bit as I knew it looked a bit dodgy and didn't think it through at the time, and I didn't get around to telling him because I didn't actually go through with it, but I started crying. I started crying to him to stay and let me explain, and I feel like even though I didn't and would never cheat, I felt as if it looked guilty of me. And once I explained it to him, he seemed totally fine with me, which was okay, but he said after the crying didn't help the situation. I felt like I ruined everything with a guy that was actually very nice but just made a few mistakes like we all do. It all seemed okay I suppose after that, and I stopped saying things about his mum. However, one night we were out celebrating him finishing his exams and we had an argument whilst drunk. In the taxi home, he told me he was breaking up with me and that he wants a wife that loves and supports him. He also said he was going back to his ex and that his mother prefers his ex. He also insulted my sister over the phone for being on benefits to help her pay her rent, even though she works. I was so angry and upset my mum and dad over the phone told me to not let him into my room when we got back as he would be verbally me the whole night. So I did just that, and he never forgave me ever since for that, saying he could have been being out in central London by himself and that I don't care about him. I have many times before that which I apologized for and explained I was drunk and angry at the time, but he didn't forgive me. I can't blame him though, as I didn't forgive him for months. I feel like karma is coming back to bite me. I tried to talk to him 3 times to try and mend things and say I would love to work through these problems with you if you'd like to as well, and he just wanted to stay friends with me, which is better than nothing I suppose. It just really hurts as I wish I wasn't so bitter. I even apologized to him afterwards, saying any mistakes I made during this relationship, such as constantly bringing up my hatred towards your mum or leaving you outside, I am truly sorry from the bottom of my heart. If we were to ever give it another chance, I promise I would be so much different and change my ways. I would never and have never wanted to make you feel that way anymore. And he said he forgives me, but he doesn't see a future anymore. I truly hate myself. He was a genuinely good person who made mistakes and I was so bitter I feel I blew it. I want nothing more than for him to be sat next to me and I can give him the biggest hug I can. Because I truly miss him out of my life. He just never believed I loved him and I don't know why. I always tried in the ways I knew how at the time, such as lying with him and hugging him tight, telling him how happy I am that he exists, and also I left a note saying how much I love him. I'd even be 5 minutes late to work most days just so I could spend an extra few minutes hugging him and kissing his forehead whilst he was asleep. I just never felt enough for him. I am so sorry for the long read. If you read the whole thing, thank you for your time. I don't know if I am struggling with something. I just overanalyze everything I do and torture myself over it. Any advice or opinions would be much appreciated. Thank you Redditors, much love for your time.